Right now in Europe, the average person driving a car in Europe is paying $10 per gallon for fuel, equivalent to what we use. Right? How do they handle this? How do they do that? And the answer is they have an entirely different way of driving compared to what we do. They drive smaller cars. They also drive cars that by necessity weigh less than ours, which means they also have higher torque. So at $10 per gallon, I can tell you that the average car in Europe is getting 40 miles to the gallon, whereas the average car in this country is getting about 20, if that. And there's another thing you have to consider. For years, the Congress has imposed certain consumption averages on the Detroit car companies. They are told that you have to be able to produce cars that get a certain number per gallons. And every few years, the Congress pushes that number higher. And they push it higher very reluctantly because the Congress in this country is in the pockets of the Detroit automobile manufacturers. Detroit has always been behind the curve on things like seat belts, on airbags, on all kinds of safety features. They only put it in cars when they were absolutely forced to do it by congressional law mandated by the people of the United States. It's the same thing here. For years they fought these laws which would have forced them to increase the number of miles to the gallon. Had they been ahead of the curve on this, they would be ahead of the Japanese today, as opposed to being behind the Japanese once again, which is what Detroit is all about. Their big thing at the end of each year is how much ground have we lost to the Japanese this year. These guys are totally asleep at the switch. They are probably the worst businessmen in America, the people that basically run the automobile companies in this country. Europe is ahead of the curve on this at 40 miles to the gallon. The other issue is the Detroit companies had written into the law that SUVs do not count in terms of miles to the gallon. SUVs are treated as trucks. So you've got millions upon millions of SUVs on the road today that are getting 10, 12, maybe 15 miles to the gallon. The Chevrolet Suburban probably gets 9, 10 miles to a gallon when it's loaded up with additional weight, which is absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous in an age of $10 per gallon of fuel in Europe and $4 in this country. All right? We're going to move towards the direction of Europe. We're going to adopt the driving habits of Europe. We're going to be all driving smaller cars in this country, and they're going to be coming out with electrified cars, which will be getting 50 miles to the gallon. We're a couple of years away from this, but this is the direction that we're moving because we have to get off our addiction to Arab oil. Thank you and have a good day.